Hey Jennifer,
How are you?
I'm doing good. And yourself?
I am doing great, thank you.
Happy friendiversary to
Yes,
start things
yes.
off.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing how fast the time is flying. As you get older, it just tends to go a little faster, I think.
Yeah, the days are just flying. I woke up today, I did not even realize it's Thursday.
Yes.
Like, and I was like, what? When I saw Mickey's email, I'm like, shit, today's Thursday. You know? like, it just, I'm thinking, where did this week go? I mean,
I
and
know.
is it because we tend to get so busy that we don't realize time is just flying past? Possibly. But
It's possible, when you're really busy, you don't realize the passage of time. I know because my kids are in school and then I work in home and I've got the same routine every single day. Sometimes I don't know what day of the week it is, but I just have to look at my watch and say, "Oh, it's Thursday."
yeah, Friday again, tomorrow, and then it's the weekend. You
Yes,
know,
and it's July
Ex-
next month. Or sorry, next week
exactly.
is July. It's another month.
Yeah, yeah. Christmas is like literally around the corner. You know, these last few months of 2026 are just going to go past just like that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see you. I know exactly, more or less 1 year ago we first met. You came on the show. Straight after that, you came on to Talking Back to Suicide, and you were absolutely phenomenal on that show as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's good to see you again, honestly speaking, from my heart to yours.
Yeah, and it's been a crazy busy year. There's been a lot of stuff happening. And yeah, I can't, I try to look back as like all the things, there's so many things I can't even list that have happened in the last year. So
I can't even remember what I did yesterday.
I can't remember what I ate yesterday.
Yeah, I knew I was busy. I knew I was doing stuff, but I can't exactly tell you what I was doing. Like, I
Yes.
got a diary, okay, and I write down, okay, this is what needs to be done today.
Yeah.
But I don't know about you, and if you also use a diary, and I'm not too used to it, and I don't really prefer it, but at times I do need to make notes of certain things. But then you don't even end up doing the things you wrote down.
Yeah. So I have a writing agenda. Yes, I have a schedule and I'll write down a list of tasks that need to get done, but I find that if I put them into the one day, I seldom have time to do it that one day. So I make a week's list and some days I'm more productive and some days I'm not. So but as long as I finish all of those tasks by the end of the week, then we're good.
Yeah, that's good discipline. Well done to
Yes.
you. Okay, so as you said, a lot has been happening over the last year. So, books and writing aside, we'll touch on that really soon. What's been up? What's been up with life, generally speaking?
Yeah, just kids growing and gardening and I'm learning piano, started running, just different things like that, has been keeping me busy. It's not one specific thing, it's just a million little things.
Yeah, yeah. So, why the piano?
Uh, you know, I've always wanted to learn piano. I took lessons for a couple months when I was 6. My kids started piano lessons 2 years ago, and to support them, I said, "Okay, I will take lessons with you. I will start lessons at the same time. We can all learn together." And they did it for a year, and I continued on, and I've now been doing piano lessons for about 2.5 years. And I decided to try for my Royal Conservatory. I think I made it. I'm studying now for grade 3 in the Royal Conservatory, and it's just something that once I started and it clicked, and I was just like, I want to continue this on and learn more about it.
Yeah, nice, nice. So, we got the next Beethoven in the making.
Hardly. I'm a little old for when he started. He started, I think, really young.
Yeah. I also love the piano. the traditional old school pianos, like your Beethoven types,
Yes.
like I won't about it. And I would love to also one day learn to play on it. Like in my music studio, I've just got like a standard, studio piano,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
for audio workstations. But those traditional ones, like, wow,
Yeah.
like, well, when you watch people doing their thing on it, there's so much beauty and joy and, you
Yeah.
know, love in it. It just takes you to worlds unknown, which I know you love to go to, right?
Yeah.
And I also love to listen to Beethoven, personally
Mhm.
speaking. Yeah. And I was
It
lucky
it
enough,
creates Oh, go ahead, sorry.
or so now I was just going to say I was lucky enough to walk into a secondhand charity shop. It was last year sometime, if I'm not mistaken. And I came across these old school vinyls, So, of course, it's
Ooh.
not by Beethoven itself, it was
Yes.
like other composers, playing all of Beethoven's music. And, I never think twice about taking it, to add it to my collection. Yeah.
I remember that's a nostalgic thing. I'm so glad they still have records and record players because I remember being a kid and it was in the time before, CDs and I think, when cassettes were just coming out. I'm kinda dating myself here. But I remember sitting on the rocking chair and I'd have these giant headphones on and my dad would play the records and I'd be listening to them. Yeah, that it brings back memories.
Yeah, it does. And now CDs is becoming like vinyls. So like behind me
Yes.
also on my shelf, I go to the same secondhand stores because it's like the only places you'll find like these old school CDs, from the 90s and 2000s. And
Mhm.
you get them for so cheap and it's still in a good condition. As the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure. So I collect these and I've got all these like, CDs from back in the day and I've just collected them because this is what vinyls, was once upon a time. Now we're living in the streaming era. So to actually come across these CDs with music stores, closing on all the time, it's gold to me.
Yeah. Well, I remember growing up and I had the big binder and you'd have like the sheets with like the CD slots and stuff. And I still have it, my big binder of CDs. I don't have anything to play them in, but I have the big binder and I'm just holding on to them because yeah, you never know like what we have today in 50 years or so is how much is it going to be worth? It's going to be considered an antique. Oh, that makes me feel really bad.
Yeah,
You know?
100%. 100%. Like I even managed to collect 3 of Taylor Swift's first CDs or
Yeah.
first albums, that she released. And I'm thinking to myself, collecting this, as you said, in about 50 years' time, probably sooner,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
all the Swifties around the world. If I have to put this on some marketplace and be like, I got the original, it's here
Yes.
up for sale,
Yes.
they are going to jump to buy it, just like how, you would
Mhm.
jump to get a vinyl,
Yeah.
these days. So that's quite
Yeah.
awesome. But CDs are still relevant, even though, stores keep closing down because we're living in this digital era. And I know there's still a lot of stores around the world, but it is still relevant. And in the music industry, you now get these platforms where you can actually convert your music, into a CD and vinyl and sell it to your community. So that's
Mhm.
still quite cool. And I mean, it's still trending. It's still
Yeah.
trending, especially if you got a big enough community and you can just make this, for them. And you would think, making this like would be costly, but it's not. It's like a few dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. But I can see the appeal because there is the storage issue and, the accessibility issue that digital kind of circumvents.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, once again, spontaneous way to start the show. Yeah. So for new listeners, This is the third time I am meeting Jennifer and the second time that she has come on to the Kino as a podcast. So I am going to tag our first conversation to this show. And I got a few notes here on what listeners can expect in the first conversation, which was
Mhm.
a year ago. So, Jennifer, if you don't mind, I just want to go through this list on what you
Oh,
did
yeah.
mention a year ago. So, we spoke about you starting to write at a young age. You began with poems and short stories as a creative outlet. You received a typewriter from your mother. That's where your writing journey began. You were open enough and transparent enough to talk about being diagnosed with autism, ADHD, and dyslexia in 2019, which explained her lifelong struggles with social interaction and reading, which is kind of hard to believe, how you interacting right now, coming onto a podcast, you know, that's crazy. You created your own scripts for conversations, kept a notebook of dialogue to learn how to talk to people. Your sons were diagnosed first, which led to you to seek your own diagnosis. You spoke about your writing processes, the Ascension series, which was your debut series, inspired by watching the TV show Merlin. Um, Callum Walker, which is your latest series, and a series we are going to touch on the show as well. So I'm not going to mention what I got written next to that. You spoke about your self-publishing journey, chose to self-publish after rejecting traditional contracts that wanted to buy your rights. Self-publishing model. Jennifer maintains full creative control, works with independent editors, and uses KDP for printing. Why she writes? I love this one. Cheaper than therapy.
Yes, it is my therapy.
Yeah, we spoke about AI, still a trending topic on the show a year later. You mentioned that it's a tool for grammar and spell check, but should never write your stories. AI
Correct.
generated books, the readers can tell the difference. Disclosure is required. The risk of false positive AI detection software that can flag organic work incorrectly. A philosophy on creativity. AI was meant to make life easier so we can create more, not create for us. Nice, nice.
Yes.
Your other interests, karate, airsoft, personal training, and nature. And we also spoke about your upcoming projects, book 4 in the series, which is why we're all here today. So, what I've mentioned there, to sum up what you talked about last year, do you still resonate with
Oh,
all
yes.
of those?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So, you still got strong beliefs about AI, you're still doing
Yep.
karate. But
I'm not doing karate so much now. I'm still active, but yeah, I don't have I like karate, I just don't have the time for it anymore. And, so I'm having to, they're hobbies. They're not something you do all the time.
yeah, yeah, 100%. But I mean, it's a lot of discipline, you know. Is karate like
Well, yeah.
labeled a sport, by the way?
I think it would qualify as a sport. It's kind of like along those same lines as Taekwondo and those kind of things where it's not karate isn't in the Olympics, or isn't a, international sport, I don't think. I know they have tournaments and stuff, but I don't think it's as widely known as Taekwondo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Growing up, I was obsessed with mixed martial arts, but I just never, ever, ever got, and maybe I will, who knows, got to actually taking up classes. Now, of course, visually, there's many differences,
Mhm.
but what would you say is like the psychological difference between doing mixed martial arts and karate?
I really can't speak too much to that because I've never done mixed martial arts, but I know that, when I started karate, I found that it gave me something to focus on. Yes, there's a lot of discipline. There's a lot of, instead of comparing yourself to others, you're bettering who you are. And although I didn't have to use my karate per se. I mean, there was one situation, but we won't go into that. It wasn't so much that I would intend to use it against other people. It's more of it's a physical activity. It's a confidence building activity. It's good for your body, good for your mind. And if you needed to use it, you have it.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's huge, eh? I mean, it's become so huge internationally. You know, when I look at karate and then I look at mixed martial arts, I'm like, okay, mixed martial arts. These guys just want to beat the crap out of each other. you know,
Well, I'm sure they don't all go into it just for that. It's like running, jogging or yoga or any other physical activity. You do that to kind of, give yourself something to focus on. Do something that's physical as well as mental.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's gotten so big that it's actually a sport that's taking place in the front lawn of the White House. You know,
Yeah.
you know, a big wow there. Uh, Jennifer, I want to ask you uh, before we get to your book and your series, right? I need to ask you a question, because you're so open about ADHD, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Um, Okay, first one is how's it been going for you over the last?
It's a day. It's always going to be a daily struggle. I analyze every conversation I have. I have difficulties understanding sarcasm, jokes, idioms. I have a hard time reading um like implications in speech, different tones. I don't I always, it's difficult when people don't just come out and tell me when they beat around the bush. I get confused, and in small talk I struggle with. Um, but that said, it's not that people on the spectrum can't learn to function in those areas. It's just those things that would come naturally to other people are something that we actively have to learn. So I do have people like, like you mentioned, they look at me and they look at how I interact and they say, "Oh, you don't look like you have autism." It's because I have taught myself how to interact. What they don't see is that after a trip to the mall where there's a lot of people and a lot of noise and I can't filter any of it and I'm noticing all of it and I'm struggling to stay focused on any conversation, and then when I go home, I have to go and sit in a dark room and decompress with no sensory information. So that's what people don't see about it.
Yeah, the behind the scenes about what
Yes.
really goes down.
Because
Yeah.
we put a mask on and it's almost like, you know how that people talk about putting on different hats, you put on your mom hat or your job hat or whatever. And for me, and I described it to somebody else, it's almost like you have to put on a whole outfit and
Mm.
you mirror what other people, I've spent my whole life watching people and figuring what is it that they want me to behave like. How should I behave? I'm going to behave like I see other people behaving. So I that's what the masking is all about. It's us putting on a suit to present ourselves to the world in a way that the world will accept us. But that's not us. We're hiding who we are beneath this suit.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense to me.
Mm.
The main reason I brought this up again, even though, on the first episode and on talking back to suicide, you know, we took a deep, deep dive into the subject.
Yes.
And for me, I feel this is God's reason why I have gotten the opportunity and honor to speak to you this week is because of an incident that took place within my community this past Tuesday.
Mhm.
And, since you have, lived with ADHD for so long, you might be able to assist me, with this dilemma and, help me to figure out, what's the way forward. So
Mhm.
I was directly involved with the situation on Tuesday that involved a young girl. She's 26 years old. She was brutally abused by her parents, like brutally abused. I mean, it was like a movie going down. I had to call in private security, a whole tactical team, so we could actually break her out of her home while her parents were away. And then, of course, the police and ambulance showed up. Now, she also has ADHD, which we found out later
Mhm.
on from the paramedics. So the the situation that we all going to be sitting with right now is, of course, now she was physically harmed, okay, and those wounds will heal and so on. But for somebody who has ADHD but has been abused physically by her own parent, and I mean brutally abused, how will this like affect her moving forward with her life?
You know what? I'm not really able to speak on that because I'm not a doctor, and
Yeah.
it's a spectrum. So everybody's, some people have more difficulty in the social communication area, like my oldest. Other people have more problems with like the sensory or the OCD aspect of the spectrum. And autism and ADHD are very closely linked. Um, so just because you know one person with autism or ADHD doesn't mean you know everybody with autism and ADHD. We have our individual struggles. Trauma alone is a different beast altogether. I do know that I don't even know the name of it, but people who are, like on that spectrum, the neurodiverse, trauma hits them harder and it's a lot harder to get over it. A lot of things are internalized as from my experiences. And it just, yeah, she should seek counseling. It's not something that,
Mm.
community can support, obviously. But if a person has been through trauma like that, um, I have no experience in that. That's not something I can speak to from my own personal experiences, and I'm not a counselor, so but I think she should probably go see
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely, you're correct. What we're doing now is just sharing opinions. I'm just thinking to
Mhm.
myself, like, she has ADHD already and now being, as you said, traumatized, good word to
Yes.
use. Um, like, I just feel it's just going to enhance that and, like, make it worse.
It
She's
could. It
counseling
Yeah.
therapy straight away. Yeah.
Yeah, it could. It definitely could, because I know that a lot of people, and myself included, who are, with ADHD, whether it's ADHD, autism, or anything, have a higher prevalence of anxiety and depression. And we know that if that escalates, it can lead to other mental health disorders. And, suicide is one of those things that can happen. And
Yeah.
I mean, already she's got, with ADHD, she's already got that against her in that, she already feels, like, overwhelmed by the whole world, and then to be going through a situation like that, she's definitely gonna need some help.
Yeah. Scary world, eh? Scary
It
hell,
is.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And, I'm like 1,000% sure, this is not the first time something like this has happened. And this happens country to country. There's
Oh, it
many
happens
places.
everywhere.
So, yeah, 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 yeah. So it's good, that we all just interact with each other, discuss about it a bit, because, it helps, on what to do about it to actually, you can't really fix it. We don't have some magic wand to fix it, but, the bits and pieces that everybody does share, put it all
Yep.
together and we can see, okay, how can we really go about this? So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah, I think as a community, the only thing you can do is be supportive and communicative and welcoming. And, I mean, some people who go through trauma, they don't wanna talk about it, whether they have, neurodiversity or not. They don't always wanna talk about it, but be there if they do.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah, you're welcome.
it. Okay, so let's talk about Mr. Callum Walker. So before we touch on book 4, Forsaken Souls, just give us like a brief rundown from book 1 to 3 about what the series is about?
Okay, yeah. So my series is a dark fantasy. I have lots of action adventure. I have some supernatural and suspense elements in there to kind of keep it less boring. I get bored easily. It's a young adult and up. So all that means is there's a few swear words here and there. There's hints of romance. I don't write sex. Some people do. It's just not my jam. And so my series is a journey of belonging and self acceptance. There's our world, our time. There's a coexisting magical realm with a veil that separates us. We can't see across this veil because we don't have magic, but these creatures that do can and have, and they've been the source of our fairy tales, mythologies, monster stories, what have you. Callum Walker is a young man born with the ability to use magic. He doesn't know why. He's trying to make the most of it. Because of that, he is able to cross that veil, or rather, he's dragged across the veil a few times, becomes embroiled in this magical realm, learning about this world and all the beings therein. Adventures ensue, and we follow him through the series as he's trying to figure out who he is, where he belongs, because he's too magic for here, but he's too human for there, and master these abilities to survive. In my fourth book, so we follow him through this journey. In my fourth book, he has had an experience from the third book that really traumatized him. It affected the way he sees himself and his place in this world. And he's trying to repress these traumatic memories um, while he's continuing on this journey to try to write something that happened in the second book that damaged the veil. And he feels responsible for that, even though he wasn't really responsible for that. I have another character who's with him who is he's kind of like his wingman in this book. And they have a friendship that's developed. And so they're on this journey together to find a way to fix the veil. They end up walking into enemy territory, not realizing that there is a conflict brewing between the elves in the north and the elves in the south. And they end up walking right into enemy territory, become captured, learning a little bit about these southern elves, and in this horrific environment, love brews as well. There's a love story happening there. But Callum has to learn, in order to help himself and help others, he has to face these repressed memories and this trauma that he dealt with. And that was a lot of what this story is about. There's this adventure going on. In order for him to be able to accept his place and accept who he is and help others, he must first help himself.
Wow. One, your imagination is totally wild, and I mean that in a good way. And two, I mean, you're underlining messages about your book, about your series. There's so much for a reader to take away from it, you know,
Mhm.
that can help you like in real life, you know, like what you're talking about, like facing your past trauma. That is something that we
Mhm.
all need to do in order to move forward in life.
Yes. Yeah. Otherwise, it poisons you from the inside out, and you're stuck. You can't move forward, you can't grow, you can't move past it, and it's not easy. And even if you do face it, it doesn't mean it's instantly everything's all better. And I do outline that, but I think that you know, emotional connections with with characters, like between the readers and my characters, is important. And mental health issues are a thing in our daily lives, and I don't think that we should be hiding from it. I do think that it's important to highlight those things, and talk about it, and things that are helpful, those wholesome messages that I've learned through experience and, overcoming my stubbornness, But there's also this big adventure, this bigger adventure that's happening, and he's stepping into a role of, a champion of the realm, so to speak. Instead of, we see that shift in this part of the series, instead of running from things, he's now facing them, and he's becoming that champion that he was meant to be.
Yeah, yeah. You know, just thinking, fiction and nonfiction. If somebody had to write a book about mental illness, okay, a
Mhm.
nonfiction about mental illness, I would find it quite boring, honestly
Yes,
speaking.
I think we most
But
would.
what
Yeah.
you've done here is like you can go on this journey right? This fantasy journey, and possibly still take away, not still, you will take away the same lessons as the nonfiction,
Mhm.
but it'll be so much more enjoyable to learn.
And relatable, because we see his change from the first book to the fourth book, and we see what he's gone through, and we see that inevitable build up to what's happening to him and in this fourth book. So, and I think that people don't necessarily know what it's like to be traumatized. Um, Thankfully, it doesn't happen very often to people, but they can understand what it means to be afraid, and they can understand what it means to be, a sad or anger or happiness. And those emotions are key to how readers can connect with a story and a character and experience what they're experiencing.
Yeah. So, book four, Forsaken Souls, when was it released?
It was released June of last year, so it's been a year now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's been a year. And any other, like, because I don't want you to mention too much, but anything else you want to say about Forsaken Souls?
Uh,
Of course,
it's
your community already is familiar with it, but for anybody new,
Yeah, for anybody new, it continues Callum's journey, and again, we see that shift, and he's dealing with real fears in a real dangers that he has to overcome, both within and without, and it's that shift from reactive to proactive that we're seeing in the fourth book. I'm also working on my fifth, and we will see as the series goes on, the stakes are escalating and it's becoming darker. The dangers are more ever present as we continue into the series toward the end.
yeah. I was actually going to ask next, is there another book in the making? And now we got
Yes.
five on the way. Yeah.
I'm about a third of the way through book five, and I've plotted for book six.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So how far are we going here?
I'm aiming for 9, in this series. If I have to write a 10th, I'm not gonna be upset about that. I can see that I've reached that midway point in the series, and I know that we're heading toward the end of the conclusion of the series, and I know what's gonna happen, where it's gonna end. It was just, until now, I didn't know how many it was gonna take to get there, but now that I feel that I've reached that halfway part, I'm thinking it's gonna be 9.
So it's like that feeling you get, you have to trust that feeling because like you are clearly, sentimental about the series and you attach to it. And at times we don't want to let it go. We want it to
Yes.
continue, but as you said, the feeling. So I guess that's what any author needs to like really rely on, the feeling, okay, I'm at that point now where I can say, okay, halfway there, let's start moving towards the end. And maybe there would be a 10.
It's just like when I start every book. I start with I know where it starts, I know where it ends, and I know approximately where the middle and what needs to happen. And it's the same thing with the overarching series. I knew where it started, I know where it ends, and I know approximately what needs to happen in the middle. And we've reached that midpoint. So, it was that shift from reactivity to proactivity and that acceptance. And now we're downhill toward the ends.
So when are you expecting to release book five? What's the
Book
timeline
5
like?
is gonna be next year sometime. I don't have a date set. I had to put it on hold for a while because I went back to the beginning and relaunched my first, 3 books in my series. What happened was, and I mean, it was a good thing. I've grown as an author at this point in my journey. And I got to my fourth book and I switched editors. And they did such an amazing job that I'm like, you know what? I want to go back to the beginning because I've grown as an author. My writing has changed. I'm more confident. So we went back to the first book and I added chapters and I clarified things and I went in a little bit
Mhm.
more in depth into some of the history. And we did this with this editor. And if I'm going to go through all that, I'm going to do a new cover for it. And then I want everything to be consistent. So I'm going to get this editor to do a refresh edit on my second and third books, not necessarily adding new content, but they're getting new covers too. And so now that is done, and I'm just waiting for my third book to be, you know, pushed out there. I can continue now full stream onto my fifth book, but it's not going to be until next year that one's going to come out.
Till next year. And
Yes.
I'm curious now for people who have, you know, read the first book, the second book,
Mhm,
the third book, you've gone back, you've added more chapters.
mhm.
Like the feedback that you get from people, if there is any like feedback from people, like what was the take on it? Is it something that actually worked for your career?
Yeah, I've had a lot of people say that, I mean, the second and third books, I didn't add new chapters. I just gave them new covers, and we just cleaned up some things. But with the first book, I am having people say that they really enjoy the additional chapters. They really enjoy the clarity and going deeper into the history of my realm. And so I've gotten some positive. I've gotten quite a bit of positive feedback as far as that goes.
Nice, nice. Yeah, that's good. That's a good thing for an author, right? You know,
Yeah,
to go back
exactly.
and add chapters. Yeah, and it's crazy. You know, you see how different authors actually go about it. I mean, this is the first time I've heard of going back and just adding more chapters to the first book. Where I've noticed some authors they would just release a whole separate book that's linked to something that happened in the first book, and that just becomes its own standalone book that they push out to the
Yeah.
market.
Yeah, and
And
or they've done where, they take a character from the series and they write their own they write their spin-off series or spin-off books from a character that showed up in that series.
yeah, 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 and it's innovative. I know J.K. Rowling did something similar
Mhm.
with the last one, but it wasn't really, like the others, like a story that you're actually reading. But I forgot what it was called, Harry Potter and
Something Incredible Animals or something, I can't remember, but I know what you're talking
something to
about, yeah.
do with the children going back to
Oh, yeah.
Hogwarts. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, there was that
And
as well.
yeah, yeah, and it wasn't really like a story like how the other books was. It was a screenplay. She released it as that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I do know that she did one where, she focused on a character that was, I think, mentioned in one of the books, and it was before the Harry Potter series, but she went and she did his story.
Wasn't that with Professor Dumbledore?
It could have been. Um, yeah, I don't know. I remember hearing about it, but I didn't go and check it out myself, but I do remember hearing about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not saying that because I've actually come across the book, but there were movies that was released that just focused on Dumbledore himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause I mean, he was an interesting character, so you do wanna know about his history, and there's, a lot of my characters, there's a few that they have some really colorful pasts and some history there, and I would love to go back and explore them,
yeah,
and write stories on them, and so we can see their foundations and where they came from as well.
yeah. Once again, you like just taking the questions like straight out of my head. you know,
Sorry.
because you mentioned, like, Callum having this right wing man now, and I'm sure there's other characters, that's in the series. Would you want to one day branch out and say, okay, I want to write a book, standalone on this character and his story?
Yeah, I have thought about that, and, yes, there is some characters, but I think there's other projects as well. Once I'm done this series, I'm gonna step away from it for a bit before I do that because there's other things that I wanna write and in different genres. I have plotted out a book and I'm working on as a side project. It's like a future sci-fi dystopian Robin Hood meets Romeo and Juliet with hints of Hunger Games. And then I also have other ideas for more thriller, suspense, horror type books.
Yeah. And are you writing this like, you know, simultaneously with writing book five?
I was doing that in the interim when my projects for the edits for my relaunch were completed on my end, and I was waiting for my editor to come back. So I just needed to stay creative. So I just started working on some new projects as well as a little bit of my book 5. But I find it difficult to work on more than one project at a time. My brain, I work very linear. And even when I'm struggling with a chapter, I don't feel like I can skip it over and start on the next chapter because that would be going out of sequence and my brain doesn't like it.
Yeah. I'm the same.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm the same. Yeah. I love to focus on what's in front of me, before I move forward, And
Yeah.
yeah, and I love to tell people that as well because sometimes you'll be talking to somebody, involving a project, but the year, and I'm like, whoa, chill. Let's focus on what's in front of us. Let's get Jan done first. Then we can move on, to the
Yes,
next one.
do the one thing and do it well instead of doing a bunch of things semi-well.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. I'm the same. I'm the same. And you are still publishing independently.
Yes, yeah, I created my own press company and I published through
Okay.
my press company.
Yeah, I don't think you brought them up the first time
No,
around. Or was there
uh,
this company and it?
I think it's because with my relaunch, I am now publishing through my press company. It's because that was another thing that did change as well.
Yeah, that's cool. So I mean, you could also be going in the direction now by signing your own authors, because
I
there was.
could potentially, yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to add one more comment, to that, because in the latest bio that I received today, which wasn't on the bio from last year, was that you are encouraging writers to pursue their own passions.
Yes.
Yeah.
I started young and I didn't have anybody I could talk to about it. I didn't share half of what I didn't share what I wrote. It was for me only. And I never felt like it was, you know, anybody else would like it until I did share. And then, when I go to book signings and stuff, I see a lot of young people, they come up to me and they say, oh yeah, I've been writing, but I don't think it's good. I don't know if I'd love to be published. And I see myself in them. And I tell them, it's like, if I can do it, you can do it. And you'll never know unless you share it with someone. So, you kind of have to step out of that comfort zone. I'm also reaching out to our local school system to see if I can do sort of it's like a volunteer extracurricular type, writing group. I'm also going to be trying to create my own writing group and so that I can help support other people and, we can get together and talk about how many different ways can you say sit, and talk about the nitty-gritty of writing and share what we've done and get insight from other people because otherwise it's a very lonely world. We all just sort of live in our own little spaces with our computer and our coffee and our little fictional worlds, and we need to get out there and interact with people who are like-minded. We need to have those sounding boards.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I agree. There's people out there that need people like you. They need that guidance, they need that inspiration. They, as you said, you mentioned lonely,
Mhm.
they need to know that, look, I'm not alone in this process, in this
Yeah.
overwhelming industry, that I can make something out of my writing. And I'm not talking,
Mm.
just financially, but I can pursue it, because this is something that I'm good at and I enjoy. And I want to tell
Mhm.
my story, even if it's in like a fiction way. So
Yes.
yeah, well done to you. Nice.
Thanks. And I know when I first published, it was a huge learning curve, and I had no idea where to go. I had never heard about ISBN numbers. I had never heard about consigning your books in stores. And I didn't even know KDP, what that meant. I didn't know that that was a thing. And it was another author who was also self published who actually got me started. And then I had to learn everything else on my own. And there's so many tidbits that I had to learn. I'd like to pay it forward to help other people with their publishing. Like I can't tell people about traditionally publishing so much, but I can tell them about my experiences and what I learned and share that knowledge too.
Yeah, well, I mean, the gap between independent and, traditional slash mainstream isn't that big, you know?
Mm.
Yeah, The only difference is, with the big guys is you're getting bigger budgets. And, marketing right now in 2026 is still so overwhelming for so many authors, you know.
Oh, that was the first thing that I changed because the word marketing is terrifying. I have no idea what it means. So the first thing I did was I'm not going to use that word. I'm going to change it and I'm going to say telling the world I exist because it puts me in the right
Yeah.
frame of mind. It's like, okay, to telling the world I exist, I kind of have an idea how to do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I've also noticed on social media that you also quite like out there a lot, promoting your book, in a physical way. When it comes to the digital space, how are you navigating through this, where there's so much, once again, overwhelming thought, so many authors around the world? Trying to think, okay,
Yes.
how do I place myself? What do I do? Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, where am I supposed to be? Must I be on all? Oh,
Yeah, it's somebody told me that, and it's very good advice, is, what kind of things would I want to see? And then just try to, create my own spin on that. Like, what would I want to see if I was somebody who's coming along? And I have actually talked to other authors about this too. Like, I had somebody was asking me advice because they were having a hard time finding social media, like Facebook and Instagram followers. And I told him, I said, there's like this sort of a 20-80% rule. And I said, 20% promote your book, 80% talk about yourself, because if they found you and they're following you, chances are they're following you because they found your book and they've seen your book. So they don't want to know about your book as much as they want to know who you are as the
yeah,
author. Where do you get your ideas? What are you doing out there in the world? Is there any new projects coming up? How does your mind work? And so that social media is to try to tell the world how you are as an author and how you're creative, how you become creative,
yeah,
but you still want to tell people about your books as well. I was also told that you don't necessarily need to be everywhere. Pick a couple of platforms that you really like. So I chose Instagram and I chose Facebook because I'm there a lot anyway. So I chose those two platforms. And then as I'm learning and growing, I was also invited to be a co-host on an international podcast. And I started that as of January. And now I've got the podcast bug and I'm creating my own, but I'm going to be creating my own writers group and reaching out to other writers to join. And then we can kind of powwow and, discuss ideas and share what we have and share the things that we've learned along the way.
yeah, yeah. Um, I'm not sure if you remember this, and I think it was on Talking Back to Suicide. I actually told you that I think you should start your own podcast.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, yeah. Yeah, well done. Again, there's so many well dones on the show. You know, good for you. Good for you. What's the name of the podcast?
I haven't started it yet, but I'm going to be naming it Between the Lines. And it's not talking so much about the end result where you publish your book, now what? It's more of the journey from when you started writing to when you pushed that publish button or when you became published. What happened in there? What drove you to be creative? What did you learn along the way? Those kind of things. Your journey more than anything. Your journey to becoming
Yeah,
published.
yeah. I love how you customize the 80/20 rule. That's nice. And
Yeah.
all that you said about marketing online, I agree with 1000%. You know, people want to buy into you.
Yes.
So, I agree. No, it doesn't matter what your end product is. People want to buy into you, your
Yeah.
views, your principles, your values, whatever it may be. And the moment you catch them on that, that's
Mhm.
how they will automatically buy your product. But if you're just out there, book, 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 book,
It's gonna
boring.
become boring because they already have your other they wouldn't be there if they didn't find you through your book,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. What?
You don't wanna bore them.
Yeah,
What,
exactly.
sorry?
So tell me, what do you stand for? We live in an
Yeah.
emotionally driven world. You know, people want to connect. So they're looking for, okay, who can I connect with? Who shares the same values, thoughts, principles as me? You know?
Yeah.
And I always talk to people about, a triangle that I use when it comes to marketing, because you got your product, you got your company, and then you got you. And all
Yes.
three you have to market differently. You know,
Yep.
how you market your product is different to how you market your company in our publishing house,
Mhm.
for example, and that's not going to be the same about how you market Jennifer. It's different.
Yes.
You need to
Yes.
build your brand, build a strong presence online, and that's going to get people to your product. You know, for example, if you are talking about social injustice, or in your case, mental illness, ADHD, the moment you start pushing that out there and mentioning that within your brand, you're going to connect millions around the world who
Mhm.
also have ADHD. And wow, okay, Jennifer actually relates to what I'm going through. So let me
Yeah.
get her book, because that's going to help me. Boom,
Yeah.
that's it. You're in.
Yeah. And I actually
Yeah.
had a reader point out to me, because I didn't realize it, that this whole series arc that I have, where my characters trying to figure out where they belong, they're trying to understand who they are and accept who they are. And then I had a reader say, well, that kind of mirrors your own life arc with your neurodiversity and trying to fit into a typical neurotypical world. And I was like, I hadn't thought about that. So my series arc itself is relevant to, and I mean, like, when it comes down to it, we all have that need for belonging too. So
Yeah.
it's not that outrageous.
That is a great word. Belonging. You
Yes.
know, belonging. Great word. People want to belong in this
Mhm.
era. Where do I fit in? Where's my crew at?
Yes.
Where's my people at?
Yeah,
And
and we all struggle with self-acceptance as well, like accepting who we are and being happy with who we are, our weaknesses and our strengths.
yeah. And also, another thing which I feel, we're making progress with is that we need to, once again, I'm going to mention it on the show, stop comparing, yourself to the next author.
Yes.
Because wherever that author's fans are and community is, doesn't necessarily mean they are going to be yours.
Yes.
7 billion people in the world. You need to find your people.
Yes. I mean, if you're comparing yourself and you're trying to emulate somebody else, then you're losing your original voice. You're losing who you are as a writer.
Yeah.
Same reason why you don't want to write your story just for your audience. You want to write the story that's in your heart, because if you're trying to please all your audience, then you're going to lose the reason that you're writing in the first place, and it's not going to be you. It's not going to be yours. It's going to be theirs.
Yeah.
You're writing the story that's personally and genuinely yours. Um, I also, on that same token, the only person I really try to compare myself to is my past self. And that's just so that I can gauge if I'm improving or staying the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Yeah. You always some inspiration, each and every single time that you come onto any show. It's such a pleasure just to listen to you. And, I'm grateful for you for also,
You.
being there for, you know, other people, inspiring me. It really does help us to all just to keep moving forward with what we're doing in our own personal capacity with our creativity, whatever that creativity may be,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know. Yeah. So the Callum Walker series, are you selling it by any chance, like as one like boxed package as well?
I am not yet. I have thought about it. It's a bit of a rigmarole that I have to go through for that, and so if I do, I wanted to kind of get to the end of the series before I started breaking it into box sets. I like numbers that don't have remainders. It can be divisible. So 9 is divisible evenly by threes without a remainder. If I make 10, then it's divisible by 2 without remainders. Um,
Right.
right now there's 4 books, and then I have a 5th one on the way. So if I made a box set with 4, and then I would have to do, change that as time comes on. So I'm just waiting to the end of my series to do something like that. I've also been
Nice.
asked to make audiobooks, and I'm looking into that as well.
Yeah. I think you will do great at that. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So, Jennifer, any last words from you?
I would just like to say to anybody who's starting their writing journey and they're not sure, how long it's going to take or whether it's worth it. It is definitely worth it, I find. I've been rewarded. It's not that it's not going to be hard at times and you're going to want to give up, but writing and authoring it's a marathon. It's not a race. And it's like any business, you start up any small business, you're going to work your butt off for years before you start to see progress. And whether or not you become famous or bestseller or award winning, just stay true to the reason that you're writing because you have a story in your heart that you want to put out there.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. You know, there's millions of people out there that need to hear that message.
Absolutely.
Uh, it's just crazy out there. With everything else that we're dealing, with that's happening around the world, and then with AI in the mix and authors being like,
Yes.
is it worth it? Is it not? Should I not? Am I ever going to make it? You just, doubting too much instead of having faith. You need to
Yeah.
replace that doubt and fear with faith and belief.
Yeah.
That's my motto, and keep being like, yeah, everything always works out for me, and just put it out there and let the world decide. And you don't even need, the world to say you good or you bad. And look, all
Mhm.
of us are always going to have critics, but just knowing that you put it out there, you put your story out there, you share it with the world, that's your legacy. I was speaking
Yes.
to a colleague of mine this week as well, who is also an author. And I'm saying, like, I understand why authors want to financially sustain themselves with their work.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
we all do. I understand that component. 100%, I do. But what's just as important is your legacy,
Yes.
what you are going
Absolutely.
to leave behind, right?
Yeah.
Now you look at all your books and what you putting out there, your series and all the other genres that you are working on. We are all not going to be here forever, but Jennifer's work is. What
Yes.
Jennifer leaves behind is going to be here forever. So it's just as important. So, if you out there right now and you're listening and you're thinking, okay, I'm writing, the stories are great. It's not selling as well as I wanted to. Look, just keep believing and it will. But
Mhm.
also remember, you're building your legacy. You know,
Yes.
your story will be here for the next generation and the generation after that, you know? And that there to me is so important. That matters
Mhm.
mostly to me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be somebody out there that just falls in love with your work. There will be somebody. Hopefully, it's more than one somebody, but there will be somebody that will fall in love with your work. And that is the person you want to write for.
Yes, 100%. And Jennifer, where can people find you online?
Best place to start is my website at jmshawauthor.com. You can see all my books. You can read about them. You can find the links to them online. They're all available on Amazon across the world through, available as some print on Kindle. My first two are on Kobo. The rest will be eventually, or Barnes and Noble ebooks if you are in the US. There's links to them under each book. I also have my Instagram and Facebook links on the bottom and a Goodreads link as well, so you can see what other people are saying about my books.
Yeah. That's what I love about authors. You find everything on the website.
Yeah, it's a good place to start, and
Yeah. That's one thing I noticed about authors, like everything is just there, there's so much focus on the website versus speaking to, musicians, they
yeah,
don't, and not all of them, right? Not every single independent musician out there, but there is a good percentage, that really focuses on the website. They focused here and here and here, and they're just sharing all the links all at once. But would an
it's like an air.
author,
You go in for travel, you gotta go to the airport, or, I mean, if you're taking a plane, you're gonna travel, you go to the airport, and then you travel out from there. You can find everything you
Yeah,
need there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. This is a good takeaway, and I love how authors, keep websites so relevant.
We wanna make it
Find
easy.
their books, find the link
Yes.
where you can buy their books, find their socials. It's all
Yeah.
there. Want to know more about them? It's all there. Other podcasts that I've been on, it's there. If they
Yeah.
got their own podcast, it's there.
Yeah, you betcha.
Yeah. So I love that. Jennifer, once again, thank you so, so, so much.
Oh,
Wow, that should
absolutely.
be
It's
it
been a
on the
pleasure.
show. Yeah. So since you're saying the book or the fifth book is going to be out next year, I'm probably going to catch you again next year to talk about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, I'll see what happens between then and now. A lot can happen in a year.
Exactly, Yeah, because I started, as you just said, I started this new trend, on the show towards the end of the show. I no longer tell the guests goodbye. We don't use goodbyes anymore. It's catch you later. Yeah, there's a good chance that we are going to be seeing each other really
Yes, yes,
soon, in one way or the other. Yeah, and that again is once again just building connection. This podcast or any of the podcasts I'm on is not just about, hey, come on, let's have a chat and okay, cool, bye. You go your way, I go my way. This is about building a community, building a network, building
yes,
friendship, even though we on,
yes.
different corners of the
Different
world,
continents,
irrelevant.
different
Yeah, the
hemispheres.
continent.
Yeah.
Exactly. Irrelevant,
Yeah.
irrelevant. Yeah, that's what it's about. So, Jennifer, catch you later.
Catch you later.
All right. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks.